Hey guys, what's going on? This is Jake's Reviews with a review for Transformers Age of Extinction Deluxe Class Strafe. He's a Dinobot, and he is a two-headed Pteranodon. I guess he could be a pterodactyl or a pterosaur, depending on what you want to call him. The bio says he's a Pteranodon, but if you're really going to get picky about what species of dinosaur he actually is, that bus stops with he's got an extra fucking head. So it doesn't really matter what dinosaur he actually is. Regardless, he's the guy who stole Swoop's gig. I'm not sure why they didn't just go ahead and name him Swoop, considering he is the flying dinosaur Dinobot. But I guess considering the extra head, they decided to name him a different character. The biggest problem, though, is the consistency, because he comes in an evolution pack that I got at Toys R Us, who comes with this little guy here, who they package as another Strafe. And as you can see, it makes sense. He's a pterodactyl, so that's what he became. Except this isn't Strafe. This is some minicon named Rav, who is painted like G1's Swoop, which was the pterodactyl Dinobot in the original cartoons, and every incarnation of Dinobots except for this one. So it's a little confusing as to why they didn't just go ahead and name it. I guess maybe they thought Swoop was a stupid name. I don't know. Michael Bay has clearly made some very questionable decisions when it comes to Transformers names in the past, so I guess this is really the least of our worries. But like I said, he fills the flying dinosaur role. As you can kind of tell, not very well. He's a little too thick. From the top and from the sides, he looks pretty good. He's got a really impressive wingspan. So it looks really nice from these angles here, but once you start to flip him over, you really see that he's really bulky. His legs are just sort of awkwardly placed underneath him, and you can really tell that he is just a robot sort of leaning down with his head tucked in, which is unfortunate. The good news is that his colors are beautiful. His paint is amazing. I keep knocking over Grimlock with his wingspan. That's how impressive they are. His paint is ridiculous. I love these colors. The way that the darker blue fades into this light silver blue here in the wings and on the tail, which are rubber, by the way, which is kind of interesting. I'm actually not super bummed about it. At first I thought I was going to be upset, but they do move pretty well, and if you need to reshape them, you can just heat them up anyway. They don't get in the way. In fact, they're engineered, it seems, to be out of the way at all times, which is really handy. So he looks pretty good, you know, just from a couple of different angles. But like I said, he really doesn't look sleek. He doesn't look like he could even fly. He doesn't really look, I don't know, it just doesn't look quite right. The articulation is decent. Which is good. That's good news. His legs can fold back here, and his toes can as well, which gives him a little bit more of a streamlined aesthetic, which is kind of handy. The heads are a little weird, but they do move in a lot of different directions. They don't move up and out. Basically, this one can't move that way, and this one can't move that way. But they can move just about every other direction that you need to. And they also do have articulated jaws, which is pretty nice. You do get a pretty good flap out of the wings. They have a separate joint that's not connected to his back, so they can actually get a pretty good range of motion out of those, which is also something that kind of saves the dinosaur figure. So it's okay. The dinosaur mode is all right. It gets by with good colors, and generally just a really nice aesthetic. The transformation is pretty simple. It falls into the same pit that a lot of animal transformers do and a lot of winged transformers do, which is basically just stand up and adjust. You can see that he's like 3/4 of a robot already. So what you're going to do is you're going to pop his knees out here and fold them over, and then rotate both of his legs around like that. And there is a peg in this part and a slot here, and actually you can kind of hear it creak. It's really secure. It's really, really tight. I was actually kind of impressed with the way that holds in there. His legs do look a little bit goofy. They have that angle that you can't fix. There's no joint there, which is sort of a bummer. But it's simple. You just unpeg the arms here from the wings and get them into sort of a manageable position. You're going to fold the necks out these directions and fold the head up. And then what you're going to do with the heads is kind of cool. You can do a lot of different things in them. You can leave them out like shoulder pads like that, which does actually look pretty slick. But what you're supposed to do is fold them in on this hinge here, fold them into his body, and they cover his chest and kind of give him more of like a almost collar chest piece with his pterodactyl heads. And the instructions say to fold his wings down and create kind of like a square, like almost looks more like a cape. But I think you'd probably agree that he looks way better and way fucking cooler with the wings out like this. So I usually keep him out like this. It gives him a really nice, imposing silhouette, basically. And his silhouette is awesome. I love how he looks. The robot mode is far and away better than the dinosaur mode. He's got this unique aesthetic to him that kind of separates him from the other Dinobots, but it's still derivative. It's still derivative of the same knight, samurai, warrior things that the other Dinobots are derivative from. But he has such his own personal aesthetic that really makes him stand out. Beautiful, again, beautiful paint applications. Comes out really well in the robot mode. This wing, the way these wings mesh here, is just gorgeous. He's a wonderful figure to look at. He looks good doing basically anything. His articulation is good. There is one major pratfall, and that is the fact that he has gorilla arms. He's got the good old curling iron arms, which is such a unfortunate thing. But the rest of his articulation is pretty decent, and he kind of gets away with it. The arms are universal. They are sort of impeded by his pterodactyl heads here, but you can move those out of the way, and the wing does kind of move with them. It actually has a separate piece that rotates along in a circle here, so you can get that out of the way as well. So you get some pretty good poses out of the arm. He does have a bicep swivel, not that it really helps. And his wrist actually does sort of tilt inwards like this on this hinge here, which doesn't do much to offset the look of the curling iron arms, but in terms of the functionality with some of his accessories, it actually helps out a lot. He has a little bit of a waist, which is pretty nice, and he's also got pretty good legs. Again, the weird angle kind of makes them look strange, but he's got good thigh swivel, he's got a good knee, no toes, which really would have set the whole thing off from his lower body. But it's still pretty good. He doesn't have a problem holding poses without them. The wings, again, are posable pretty much any way you want to do them, if you want to count that as part of his robot mode. So again, I mean, he just looks so damn good that it's really hard to fault him for a lot of the stuff, and especially when you start to bring in some of his accessories, which you've got here. He's got a couple of these long, thin swords that slip into his hands here, and the really cool thing about the way that his wrist works is that it just rotates out a little bit, which lets him kind of hold the sword out in an actual, like, it looks more like a natural sword-holding pose, as opposed to some of the other ways that Transformers can hold them. And again, that really does help with his curling iron arm problem. It makes him look a lot better not being able to move his arms the way that you want him to. He's also got this crossbow here, which the swords can also peg into the bottom here and create kind of a bigger crossbow, which is nice. It fits into his hand pretty well, and it really does fit in with his aesthetic. It looks a lot almost like a miniature version of him, just in terms of the silhouette. And the missile fires pretty well as well. And again, he does sort of look awkward. This is where the curling iron arms kind of become a problem, is because he has to stick his arm out in this really sort of, you know, kind of strange way that his wrist doesn't quite support. And I just feel like a figure looks weird sticking his arm straight out with a gun at the end of it like that. And that's something the curling iron arms, while it does give you sweet biceps, it unfortunately does not enable you to hold a gun very well. Now, despite all of these things, you know, what's the verdict? I think that overall he's a great figure. I think he's half of a great figure, though. He's half of an excellent figure, actually. The robot mode is outstanding, I think, just from a visual perspective, and the articulation is really, really good, despite that one major problem. If you're not too heartbroken by a lackluster dinosaur mode, then I would say to go for it. For example, if you bought Fall of Cybertron Grimlock, for example, which is the same kind of thing. He had this kind of ridiculous looking T-Rex mode, but an awesome robot mode that was one of the best of the line, and one of my favorite Transformers. Strafe is the same way. His dinosaur mode is sort of whatever. You could skip it, and you could never transform him, and you would never miss it, because it's a beautiful, beautiful robot mode. So if you're into that, and you're just into a good-looking robot, absolutely. He fits in with the Dinobots really, really well. They all fit in with each other just outstanding. I'm loving the way they all look, especially with each other. So I would definitely, overall, say I would definitely recommend him, if only for the robot mode. It's worth it. It's worth the 15 bucks they're charging you for this fucking plastic these days. So this has been Jake's Reviews. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope these have been improving already. Let me know what you think in the comments. Give me a like if you can. And I'll see you guys next time.